Let's be real. Everyone's addicted to something. Maybe it's your phone, cigarettes, junk food, or something heavier. We all have that crutch we lean on when life feels overwhelming, because honestly, life is hard.
Alcoholism, it doesn't matter what hardship you've had. That hardship and the fact that you survived it has made you a stronger human.
But here's the thing, if you're sick of feeling stuck, watching time slip away and letting your body and mind break down, then it's time to face it head on. You can't keep running from the grip of addiction forever. At some point, you've got to draw a line and say, enough. Today, I take my life back.
It's the what if I can pull off a miracle? What if I can become someone that no one thinks I can be? And just me talking about that, I have the hair going up on my arms, because it makes me just like, what if?
In this video, I'm going to guide you through the first steps to breaking free and reclaiming your power. So carve out a few minutes for yourself, silence the distractions, and get ready, because it all starts with understanding how shifting your mindset changes everything.
If you deal with the thing that stresses you, that's the trigger for you drinking. So yes, there's addictive properties to drinking. I'm not denying that. But the thing that leads to the drinking, the condition that creates that, that's something that you can attack.
No matter what you're addicted to, all addictions share one brutal truth. They operate like a Trojan horse. At first, they seem harmless, maybe even comforting, but the longer they stick around, the more they twist your thoughts and beliefs from the inside out. Think about it. When you're in the grip of addiction, it's this invisible force that takes over, whispering lies to keep you stuck. You need this to relax, or just one more time won't hurt. Sound familiar? Be careful, my friend. It's not just a habit, it's a parasite feeding off your life, convincing you that you can't live without it. But here's the thing, you actually can. And today, we're going to talk about how to break free. I heard this quote one time which went, "Your addiction is not you, but it feels like you because you've spent so much intimate time together." If you've ever battled with a strong addiction, you will resonate strongly with that, because they do feel sentient in how they guide your thinking patterns. When people are addicted to cocaine or fentanyl, their entire life becomes nothing more than a host for the drug. The addiction is so strong that it hijacks a part of your brain and makes feeding the addiction a priority over everything else. I've talked about how I used to struggle with a smartphone addiction in the past, and over the years it literally changed how I viewed that addiction. I often convinced myself, it's fine, at least I'm not doing something worse. And the logic behind these thoughts was so convincing that I would genuinely believe them as coming from my core self. I've seen this happening to other people in my circle as well. Many of my friends lead stressful lives, and they have mentioned that cigarettes are the only thing that keeps them sane. If they were to quit, they would simply find another coping mechanism.
Everyone seems to need a coping mechanism. I mean, why can't we all just will our way out of negative compulsive behaviors?
Take a step back and you'll see how insanely powerful addictions are, which is why if you want to break free from them, you'll also have to break free from the mindset that rules your life. If you believe that addictions are something you choose to engage in as a conscious act, that's the mindset I'm talking about that has to be broken. That line of thinking keeps you stuck right where your addiction intends to keep you. I'm sure you've had those sudden moments of clarity, those moments when you realize that this isn't the life you want. Hold on to them, my friend, because we're going to use them as a wave to ride out of this place. It's scary as hell, but if you really take the insights I'm sharing to heart, you can break free very soon.
You're so compelled to just continue that behavior, and the idea of stopping is almost more painful than the idea of wrecking your life.
So what should you do right now? It's very simple. Acknowledge that you are not in control of your addiction and affirm your desire to take back that control, because it's rightfully yours. I know addictions can be personal and sensitive to talk about, but if you feel comfortable, I'd like you to tell me what you're struggling with in the comments section below. Remember, you're not alone in this fight. All right, you're now ready to cut into this monster and see what it's actually made of. But fair warning, it's something you always knew but never wanted to face. I'm talking about the pain that started it all. Think of a small village at the base of a beautiful valley. High above it, there's a dam that holds a huge river back. One day, you notice a crack in the middle of the dam and there's water gushing through. Horrified, you rally other people and manage to stop the leak with random junk. There's still a little water seeping through, but it's holding for now. If you struggle with addiction, that metaphor should make a lot of sense, but let's take a closer look. The river of water represents all your unresolved pain, those unmet needs and desires, the betrayals, failures, losses, and fears. The village is your everyday life, your 9 to 5, and the normality that you've built partly for yourself and partly for society. I'm sure you're seeing these parallels in your own life because I'm seeing them in mine. The dam is a little more interesting because it represents your coping mechanisms, which are supposed to be healthy and positive. They're supposed to heal the pain instead of just hiding it away. But when you lack those options and you feel the pain every day, you turn to addiction. In a way, your addiction currently serves a purpose, and it's why quitting cold turkey can be hit and miss for a lot of people. For some of you, the addiction is the same quick fix used on the dam. It's made of junk, but it's all that's keeping your life in order right now. Remove the addiction, and you have to deal with the overwhelming pain and unresolved issues that come flooding back. Those horrible feelings of despair, hopelessness, depression, or loneliness will all hit you like a brick.
Addiction begins with pain and it ends with pain. You are in pain, you practice whatever it is you do to get you away from the pain, whether it's pornography or food or sex or drugs, and then it leads to more pain, and then the cycle begins again.
And so you're stuck in this catch-22 situation where your addiction can feel like the best solution even though it's not. Because what do you do when confronting the pain and healing feels harder than escaping from the destructive force of your addiction? If you never learned how to overcome a huge persistent problem in your life, then trying to tackle it suddenly is a much bigger burden than the effects of addiction. And this is why it's so easy to relapse endlessly when you try to leave. You're already in pain, but pushing through and trying to resolve those issues puts you in even more pain. Trust me, I know how that cycle can wear you down. You've tried stopping, but it feels like unless a miracle happens to solve your problems, there's no point trying to quit. Later in this video, I'm going to be walking you through how to deal with relapses, but right now, I want you to think back to the village and the dam metaphor. You see, the reason the river has built up so much is that no one ever bothered to release the water in a controlled way. Now, it's all pent up, and sure, you can try to fight the river directly or try to divert the flow away, but those are scary and dangerous tasks. However, problems, even big ones, exist to be solved, not for you to forever run from. Unfortunately, what I've seen is that a lot of people have gotten so good at using addiction to hide their problems that they've lost touch with the core underlying cause. This is why the next step is going to be hard, but necessary. Brother, you gotta allow that pain to surface again. You see, I'm a firm believer in the idea that it's better to break an addiction in 2 years than try to beat it in 2 months only to fail and relapse for years. We already know that stopping your addiction isn't the solution. You've already heard the same explanation about dopamine and the need to rewire your brain 1,000 times, but all of those videos fail to help you with the most important thing, which is finding out why you picked up your addiction in the first place.
You've got work you love, you've got people you love, you've got healthy relationships. And a core part of addiction, I came to think, and I believe the evidence suggests, is about not being able to bear to be present in your life.
Think about it. You can lock yourself up in a room and technically be free of your addiction, but when you eventually leave and experience the old problems and pain, you're going to relapse hard. This is why you got to shift focus away from the addiction itself and toward improving your ability to deal with that monster you're afraid of and hiding from. The good news is that you have time. Your addiction doesn't realize it, but you're now working behind its back. Together, you and I are going to kick its ass. So here's what you got to do. Stop indulging in your addiction for a few days or weeks. Remember, we're not trying to break the addiction just yet. What we're trying to do is bait that pain to surface again, and when it does, you gotta be strong and focus hard on what's behind it. If your addiction is spending hours on gaming and social media, you'll start to feel pretty terrible when you abstain from them. But when you pay attention to those feelings, you might come to realize that you occupy yourself with those behaviors because maybe you're lonely and can't be alone with your thoughts. But don't stop there, go deeper and find out why that is. You may then discover that it's because you never learned how to relate or make friends properly, and now you feel like you're too old to start that process. When you find that real underlying cause, you've just gained an important key that's going to unlock the next door, because with this new awareness, you can now prepare for your new life. In this stage, you're going to be carrying out several steps. The first is to redefine your identity as a person who no longer uses addiction as a coping method. This is the start of real healing. I've made several videos on how to tackle different problems. And if there's something specific you want me to cover, do let me know in the comments. But right now, what I want to help you with is those primary steps that will get you on your feet and into action. Here's the reality. If you've spent years in addiction, then you've also built up an identity that's been influenced by your addiction. This is why redefining your identity with your commitment to change can be immensely powerful. It sounds like bland self-help advice, but trust me, brother, it's really important. You can start the process by simply internalizing a statement like, I am not someone who's a slave to my addictions. I'm going to be living a new life from today. You have to want this with the core of your being because it's going to give you that conviction to commit to a drastically different life from the one you've led so far. If you need inspiration on how to do this, I actually made an interesting video about how to disappear and transform yourself, which you should definitely check out after watching this video. There's also something else that makes a huge difference in breaking an addiction, and it's learning to see the true reality of things. You know, when you spend years of your life running away from problems and seeking refuge in addictions, reality starts to distort. When I was younger, I struggled with a lot of social anxiety, but the truth is, it all stemmed from a few bad moments that created this huge fear of social situations that haunted me for so many years.
But it'll almost inevitably be the case that if you take a look at the problem, a detailed look, the reality will be less terrifying than the specter that your imagination has conjured forth.
It wasn't until I took an honest look at my situation that I realized that the whole thing wasn't as bad as I thought it was. It made me feel like the biggest idiot, but it was also such a huge epiphany for me. I could suddenly see that my distorted perception of reality in combination with addiction acted as this chain that held me in the same place for so long. I believe that life is all about moving through and experiencing everything it has to offer, both the good and the bad. But allowing yourself to be beaten by monsters that don't exist, and then using an addiction to cope with issues whose severity has no basis in reality, well, that's just so absurd. Yet it's a cycle that many of us are trapped in. This is why testing your reality is something you ought to do every time you feel afraid of your monster. There are many ways you can do this, but I'd suggest asking yourself the following 3 questions. Firstly, what's the best that can happen? Secondly, what's the worst that can happen? And thirdly, what's the most likely scenario? Naturally, this means you're going to have to push yourself out of your comfort zone and try to tackle your problems. But remember to take it slow and make notes of how these situations unfold and match with your reality checking questions. I guarantee you'll be surprised at how the worst case scenarios rarely occur. It's just that our brains are so ready to catastrophize that we expect the worst, and it ends up blocking our ability to heal.
And you're a lot tougher than you think. So even though there's risk everywhere, if you confront it forthrightly, what you'll find is that you can actually handle the risk. And that's the security.
Now, I'm not saying that this is how it's going to be for everyone. For some people, there will be situations that are genuinely as bad as they fear, but it's precisely for these moments that something like the Serenity Prayer can give you a much-needed perspective shift. It goes, God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. What I've observed in my life is that rather than raging against the way things are and being in despair, there's a lot of power in being able to accept things and move on. You play with the hand that's dealt to you, and there's a sort of silent dignity in keeping your head high, even when life is throwing hell at you. If your monster is one of those unwinnable situations, you've got to rely on wisdom and on taking agency over how you let it affect you. Most importantly, you need to learn how to not let relapses stump you. Even if you're super motivated and eager to turn a new leaf, you gotta remember that motivation is rarely enough to break an addiction. Don't get me wrong, it helps, but even with the insights you've picked up through this video, relapses are still gonna happen, and you need to be prepared for them. It's just a part of the process, so you gotta plan for it, just as you're planning out your entire de-addiction journey. There will be times when you keep going back to your addiction, even when it makes you hate yourself.
Like the thing that people don't talk about drugs, they talk about what it does to your mind and how bad it is for you and blah, blah, blah. The degradation, the self-deprivation and degradation and self-loathing that goes along with being a drug addict is like so brutal.
And that's the thing, it's gonna feel like there are 100 good reasons to stay in your addiction. You might hate seeing yourself relapse over and over to the point that you don't even want to try, but you can't listen to that side of you, my friend. Always remember, the addiction wants you to stay where you are. It's always singing that line from the Eagles in Hotel California. You can check out anytime you like, but you can never leave. That's what addiction wants from you, but you gotta keep learning new lessons from every single relapse. I know people like to use smartphones to take notes these days, but I recommend you get a notebook just to make notes. If you don't like writing, that's fine. Write them on your computer, but print them out on real paper to read every morning when you wake up. There are multiple paths to relapse, and when you start each day with a reminder of what causes you to falter, it puts a giant "Do Not Cross" police sticker in front of those paths. This allows you to continue on the right path and focus on the most important task, which is slaying the monsters behind your addiction. And don't forget, you're going to want to keep yourself busy. For me, whenever I was trying to actively avoid relapsing, I found it so helpful to keep the clock full. When you're trying to keep those withdrawal symptoms away, your thoughts can become a strong enemy to battle. An idle mind really is the devil's workshop, but when you're trying to beat an addiction, it's more like a factory than a workshop. This is why it's the perfect time to try and build up a bunch of good habits, like sleeping early instead of at 3 a.m. in the morning, hitting the gym, and being as productive as you can. If there's one thing I hope you remember, it's that addictions aren't a problem. They're the symptom of unresolved pain that you have to start healing. I don't know what you're going through, but I know that we're all capable of honest self-reflection. As Gene Kilbourne said, addiction begins with the hope that something out there can instantly fill up the emptiness inside. You have to be wise, my friend, and know that the path to breaking any addiction is confronting and either slaying or healing the monster inside you, whether it be emptiness, anger, loneliness, or guilt. You have to start the process of healing, or you'll just end up drifting from one addiction to the next, always searching for something to fill that void. This journey is personal, and it's about learning to take charge of the areas in your life that matter most. I made a video a while back that dives into some practical steps to help you get started. It's linked right here if you want to check it out next. Remember, you've got what it takes to beat this addiction and begin your hero's journey right here, right now. Take care of yourself, stay strong, and I'll see you in the next one.